it's your girl Jaymie, your favorite astrologer. Today I want to get into talking all about Virgo's modern ruler, which is Chiron. I want to talk all about Chiron, when it gets activated, how to use this energy to improve the quality of your life, your health, to process your traumas, and learn the karmic lessons that you're meant to resolve in this lifetime. And I'm going to talk about the areas of Chiron that I don't think enough people discuss when it comes to this amazing asteroid. Chiron is an asteroid that represents unhealed wounds and traumas that we've inherited and carried over from our previous incarnation that we're still experiencing in this lifetime. And in this incarnation, the age at which Chiron gets activated is determined by the degree that your Chiron is in. So using my chart as an example, my Chiron is in 27 degrees, 54 minutes. So it's almost when I'm at 28 years old, but pretty much it's when at the edge of when I was 27 years old, this is when my Chiron has been triggered. And this is an important thing to learn about, because I feel like a lot of information relating to Chiron, it's very informational and it tells you what it means to have Chiron in your specific sign and in specific houses and stuff, but not necessarily how to use that information. And generally, when this is an unhealed trauma and wound, it's a pattern and a theme that you're experiencing. So it's an ongoing thing. And so it's not necessarily isolated. So understanding the age at which it got activated is going to be really useful. For some people, Chiron is related to money problems, relationship, family issues. Those aren't usually isolated incidents. So you want to take a look at that. We also want to kind of get a deeper understanding and give a greater focus to Virgo as well, so that you can properly appreciate and work with the energy of Chiron as well. So with that in mind, and before I get into Virgo, actually, I did want to mention that when it comes to unprocessed traumas associated with Chiron, these are things that you are meant to address and confront. Not every trauma that you experience is something that you are meant to face and to be conscious of. I recently did a reading for a client where some of her chart showed that there is a certain level of awareness that she has, and using talk therapy with a woman who is more emotionally or a man, but someone who is more emotionally supportive can be beneficial. But there were other areas of her chart where it showed she didn't necessarily have to be aware of the trauma in order to let it go, but there was like this theme of like athleticism that could support her. So I recommended TRE, trauma release exercises, or bioenergetics and different things. But when it comes to Chiron, this is something that you do want to be a little bit more conscious of, because Chiron is the modern ruler of Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is about conscious awareness, learning, teaching. And so you want to develop this understanding. Specifically, when it comes to Virgo and wherever Virgo is in your chart, this is an area of your life where you're going to experience problems. You experience problems and challenges so that you are able to work through it, resolve it, and correct it. That's the energy of Virgo. So these are oftentimes the themes of work, things related to your health, open enemies, different types of challenges, whatever they may be. And the key in how to resolve this is to make logical, practical corrections in a material, tangible sort of a way. When you work through this and you make improvements, you want there to be a measurable cause and effect. It's not like Pisces, which is the opposite of Virgo. Virgo and Pisces are on the healing spectrum. Pisces heals in a more esoteric, ambivalent, emotional sort of a way. It's the most ungrounded sign. It's the least material, whereas Virgo is an earth sign. So when it comes to Virgo, you want to really work on it in a way that's very earthly, very sustaining, very maintaining, things of that energy. And so before we even get into Chiron and your Chiron placement, I want you to think about where you have Virgo in your chart, because that's going to tell you a story of where you want to, where the challenges are going to lie first. So if you have Virgo in your first house, the challenges that it's likely to arise can be related to your health and your nutrition. Navigating your life in a way that's practical is going to be something that's really important. Learning to overcome self-criticism. If you have Virgo in your second house, it's important to be really practical and frugal with your finances, to be really responsible, practical, to allow these things to support you. This can also be about the things that support you, including your family, your resources. Do it in a way that's practical. Now, all of these examples that I'm going to give all the way to the 12th house, this is based on if you don't have any aspects or anything that sort of changes up that energy, because I'm not providing you with a personalized reading in this video. So, you know, this is generalized, but it still tells a story. Like, if you have challenges, then you're not going to be, you can have a harder time accessing this energy, but there's still a theme of kind of working through and using the energy in this sort of a way. Now, if you have Virgo in your 3rd house, which is what I have, this is related to your early childhood experiences, siblings, particularly your younger siblings, your neighborhood, starting projects, things of that nature, communication, your thinking style. If Virgo is in your 4th house, this can be having a critical mother, for example, or having a family that's very intelligent and practically oriented. Your mother can be like this. Your home, it could be really important for you to have a really organized space and like a system and a function that's just very practical. Virgo in your 5th house can be about, when it comes to, if you have your own business, having a business that's supportive, gives back to the community in a way that's practical. This can be offering a technological service or something that solves a problem in a very practical sort of a way, and perhaps associating with technology as well. This could also be about your relationships. And this can mean that it's really important in relationships to be practical and to think things through, to be responsible, to be careful about falling into any steps of like criticism. There's something for you to learn and correct in this area of your life. If Virgo is in your 6th house, this is about your health, and you may have more digestive gut challenges and issues to work on, and being really responsible and healthy and planning your nutrition and your habits and your work environment in a way that's really practical is going to be really beneficial. This could also show the kind of employees that you have. It's going to be really beneficial for you to have employees, or being an employee that's really practical, supportive, organized. These are going to be things that can be really beneficial. I know some like personal organizers, for example, that have Virgo in their 6th house, for example, or their Virgo risings, and that shows like who they are, or like their ideal work environment. If you have Virgo in your 7th house, this can be professional, business collaborators, marriage partners, relationships. Romantically, this is going to be kind of a similar theme to having Virgo in your 5th house, but with long-term partnerships. Like, this could show that you're with someone who is practical, supportive, and when you're collaborating with someone professionally, this can be someone you want to make sure that you work with someone who is very supportive, very organized, and has a really good system. If you have Virgo in your 8th house, this can be like when it comes to processing trauma, doing things in a really organized, practical sort of a way, rather than being really esoteric, using knowledge and information that's fact-based. This can be something that can be really beneficial, and really taking the time to correct things and seeing the beneficial cause and effect can be really helpful. Having Virgo in your 9th house, this can be someone who connects to spirituality and has personal goals that are very supportive in nature, giving back to the community, helping and healing, diagnosticians, doctors, nurses, people who are in the technology field, where they can do something supportive and helpful, and they can find this to be a way to give back to the community. And this can be like a very spiritual calling to them. This will connect them to their spirituality. Your goals may be very supportive, very practical. Oftentimes, when I think about like the SMART goal plan, that's something that can work really well for like a Virgo. I have Pisces in my 9th house, so that's just that kind of specificity it hinders the success of my growth when it comes to goal setting. But this is something that can work really well with a Virgo in the 9th house. If you have Virgo in the 10th house, this can be a leader who is very supportive, and someone who, if you have your own business or as a boss, you're like, how can I help my employees? How can I be supportive? What can I do to make this easier for you. This could be someone who is in a technology industry. One of my friends' mom has a career where she literally checks to make sure to catch any mistakes and make improvements on like space shuttles. I mean, that is a very Virgo job. It's very technical, it's very precise, and it's about making corrections, inspections, things of that nature. Having Virgo in your 11th house, this can show your friends, the archetypes of your friends, how you can achieve financial gains. In order to achieve financial gains, your benefactors, your followers, your friends, again, similar concept, that Virgo theme. You know, you might do really well with friends who are really practical, and you can bring that kind of energy in order to achieve financial gains and stuff like that. If you're trying to like get a raise or a promotion at work or something, you know, showing up in a very Virgo sort of a way, kind of like presenting like, hey, this is the reason why I deserve a raise, in a way that's very well spoken, very planned out, very organized and systemized, can be really beneficial. Having Virgo in your 12th house, this is sort of an interesting energy, because this is someone who may want practical information rather than like, you know, not that they're not necessarily interested in past lives, but someone who is going to want information that it's really usable. So rather than doing like, I don't know, prana healing or Reiki, just because they might be more interested in DNA epigenetics, you know, something where there's like psychological evidence and scientific data to back up like something that's used for healing, the type of healing that's going to be really beneficial for you. And what helps you to heal can be working on your health. So that kind of tells a story. Another thing I do want to mention is that Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. And Gemini is the first sign that's ruled by Mercury. So Virgo is more mature. And so you can also kind of try to see, depending on where your Chiron placement is, you can determine like if you want to take a look at your Gemini to see if it's going to be somehow tied together. And I'm going to give you an example of what that might look like through my chart. So I have Virgo in my 3rd house, which represents early childhood experiences. It's home to Gemini. Because of my rising sign, I don't have Gemini here, but that's literally, it has that Geminian energy. So when I look at so for me, the energy of Gemini becomes really relevant. And you also want to look at where your Mercury is in your chart, since we're also talking about unhealed traumas and wounds and stuff like that. You also want to look at where Scorpio in your 8th house is, because this is also related to traumas and healing. So you want to tie all of these different things together when you're considering all of this stuff. And it just makes so much sense that Chiron is the modern ruler of Virgo, because Virgo rules health issues. And oftentimes, you know, there's a lot of studies that's shown that when it comes to physical ailments, they're rooted in emotional, psychological, spiritual, energetic imbalances. And then when those go ignored, it starts to physically manifest itself in our bodies, in affecting our health. So by understanding what's going on physically, we're able to kind of connect with Chiron on a deeper level. So you want to take a look at those things. And I think what's more important, it's not just about understanding like, oh, like, for example, I have Chiron in my 11th house, right? Like, rather than being told like, oh, if you have Chiron in your 11th house, this can be something related to problems and unhealed wounds related to financial gains and friends, stuff like that. Or since it's in Taurus, things related to your sense of self-confidence, your family. You know, that's true, but it's like, how do you use that information, right? At the end of the day, like, what does that do for you? So you want to take a look at all of these things involved. So Chiron in my 11th house, you know, what it's at 27 degrees. So I was 27 years old and I experienced this. This is something that got activated in my adult life. But Virgo is in my 3rd house of early childhood experiences, so it's still rooted in my early childhood experiences. And that's why whatever happened to me in my childhood is what affected me in my adult life. So looking at my early childhood experiences, this is going to be really valuable. And also, you know, that kind of tells me a story of like, well, what is going on, right? And so when you're looking at Chiron being in my 11th house and Virgo in my 3rd house, that alone, there's this correlation of friendship that's involved here. Because the 11th house is about friendships, the 3rd house is about friendships, Virgo is about friendships, right? So there's something there going on. And then Mercury, the traditional ruler of Virgo, is in Aquarius, which is also about friendships. So you're looking at these things. Whenever you're looking at stuff like this, it's important to remember that there's always, like, one of my biggest pet peeves in the astrology community is that sometimes I see these noobs getting into these arguments and they're like, that sign or that house doesn't represent this because this other sign, this other house represents this. Literally, astrology isn't divisive in that sort of a way on like a general everyday kind of a thing. More than one sign, house, and planet represent one thing. It's designed to do that for a reason, because it gives us opportunities and ways to navigate things it gives us different opportunities and just different ways to learn and grow, basically. So when you start to notice, like, okay, what sign is it in, what house it is in what subject is that related to, you look at other houses and other signs that also represent those things. 11th house friends, Taurus, you know, so right there, it's like, okay, well, Gemini, 3rd house, Aquarius, you know, you start to connect those things together and you start to look at those things. You look at Mercury. These are the things that you want to take a look at and consider things in that sort of a way. And you can use that to sort of piece things together. So say you have Chiron say your Chiron is ruled by the sun, which is Leo, right? The challenges that you may experience could be related to issues with your self-confidence. You show it with your individuality, your creative intelligence, things related with being a performer, being in the spotlight, authority figures, showing up as a leader, relationship challenges with your father. And again, think about the degree, because that'll tell you when it got triggered. You know, if you were a child, it might be more likely that this is related to your father rather than your career, unless you're like a child actor, which is very much a thing if you have Chiron in Leo, potentially, because Leos represent performers. But you want to kind of do a process of elimination. But if your sun rules Chiron, then you want to look at where your sun is. You want to take a look at your 5th house, because your 5th house is home to Leo. So you want to look at the original house that your sign rules to sort of get an idea of what that's about. Okay, and if you're having issues with like a father figure or authority figure, you want to take a look at your 10th house, the planet that rules this, and it tells you a story of what those things are. And it's important to remember that the challenges related to these houses are also our problem, but also the things that are associated with that sign and that placement is also the solution. So in my case, for example, I have Aries in my 10th house, and 10th house in Aries can be very bossy, confrontational, but Aries is also very instinctive. It's a really good leader. It's really inspiring. It's very motivating. It's very initiating. These are all positive qualities. So you want to channel the positive qualities. So think about those things. So if you're having challenging issues with like your father or with authority figures, and your Chiron is in either aspect with the sun, or it's ruled by the sun because it's in Leo, look at your 10th house. What are some challenges with that sign that's there, with that placement that's there? And what are some positive benefits? How can you incorporate that into your skills as a leader? You want to sort of think about it like that. You want to piece things together. So say your Chiron is ruled by the moon because it's in Cancer. Now this can be something that's related to unhealed wounds related with your mother, your family, motherhood. And so when you think about it like that, the 4th house represents the mother. The 4th house represents the home. This could also be in your family, so this could also be challenges with your home environment as well. And depending on the branch of astrology that you use, some people say that the 10th house represents the mother. So you might want to, if that's if you believe that if you resonate with the 10th house belonging to the mother, you might want to take a look there. I've seen it be both sides, and it really depends on the branch of astrology that I use that determines which system I follow. But if that's your thing, I just want to throw that out there as an option. But now if the pain is related to family, that's not just limited to your 4th house. In ancient astrology, your 2nd house is also representative of family. If you're talking about your siblings, that you're looking at your 3rd house in general, but that's more specifically your younger siblings, and your 11th house is related to your older siblings. So you can take a look at those signs and kind of piece things together. Now, if your Chiron is ruled by Mercury because it's either in Gemini or Virgo, say it's in Gemini, okay, now you're talking about your early childhood experiences, maybe your early school environment, languages, writing, talking, speaking, things of that nature. Maybe it has to do with music or communicating, expressing yourself. So you want to look at your 3rd house, you want to look at Mercury, you want to look at where Gemini is. You also want to take a look at, like, if it's related to music, Venus, that rules music. Neptune is the higher octave of music. Your 3rd house is early childhood experiences, your education, that's also very Mercury. So these are sort of the themes that you want to explore. Now, if your Chiron is, and then if it's ruled by Virgo, the theme, Mercury plays a little bit differently in Virgo. And so this can be related to your health, or maybe it's the way you show up in your habits, your planning, showing up as a leader. Maybe as an employee, you get mistreated, or you have some challenging experiences with coworkers and some betrayals, or maybe when as a boss, you come across constant issues with your coworkers and your employees, right? So you might want to take a look at your 6th house and see, okay, what are some ways, what sign do you have there, what planets do you have there, what are the positive qualities related with any signs there, the planets there, and redirect that energy and work within that space. And remember, when it's Chiron, you want to confront it. You want to say, hey, you know what, there's sort of this challenge going on and I really want to resolve it. And here are some ideas that I have to improve things in the workplace. What do you think? And the ideas and the recommendations that you present can be related to the placement and the energy that's there. Now, if you have Chiron in a Venus-ruled sign like Taurus or Libra, these are going to be more harmonious things to be working on. So if you, for example, have Chiron in Taurus, these are things related to your finances, your self-esteem, your confidence, resources, things that ultimately support you. This could also be family. This can be boundaries and stuff like that. So look at the houses and the signs that represent that. If it's related to boundary issues, take a look at Virgo. Virgo is great with boundaries, and as far as how to correct it. And as far as like the vulnerability, you can take a look at Pisces, which tends to does dissolve boundaries. Neptune, same thing. 12th house, same thing. If it's related to family, it's the stuff that I already mentioned, the 2nd house, the 3rd house, 4th house, 11th house as examples. If it's finances, you're looking at your 2nd house, Venus, 11th house. And also whose finances? Is it your client's finances? That's your 8th house. Your 7th house is your clients, or your spouse's clients. That's your 7th house. The second from the 7th is the 8th. That's their financial resources. These are the things that you want to take a look at. And let's see here. So, like, for example, I have a friend who's an investor, and he has Gemini in his 8th house with Mercury, Venus, Mars. And so I gave him some recommendations on the things that's best for him to invest in. So if you have like these challenges related to finances, maybe you make some mistakes that really financially hurt you. So maybe there's something for you to learn and resolve and correct through studying and reversing that energy. You know, it shows up differently. So you want to take a look at the specific houses, the signs, and the planets involved to tell a story, to figure out how am I going to improve Chiron in my chart. Now, if Chiron is in your Libra, this can be relationship challenges, whether it's professional partnerships or romantic partnerships. So there can be things, and Venus is also about your self-confidence. Maybe not feeling supported or finding like that sense of like harmony, that reciprocal energy. What does that look like? You want more of that. How are you going to work through that? Looking at your 7th house, looking at Venus. You know, if it's romantic partnerships, you also want to take a look at your 5th house, which is about romance, love, dating. You know, what are the types of issues that you have in your romantic partnerships? Is it because there's like, I don't know, sexual selfishness or something? Then you're going to be looking at your 8th house. But in ancient astrology, the 7th house is the sex house because it's related to Libra. It's 2 bodies coming together and it's a Kundalini energy. In modern astrology, it's the 8th house. So you can take a look at these things in different ways. Now, if Chiron is in a Mars-ruled sign such as Aries or Scorpio, let's see. So if it's in Aries, this can be that you have some challenges with anger or fitness, showing up as a leader and stuff. So if it's about anger, looking at your Mars. If you want to correct that, look at Saturn. Saturn is about making corrections. If it's related to fitness, look at your 1st house, look at your moon and your 6th house of habits and your health and stuff that can improve these things. If it's related to challenges being a leader, look at your 10th house, look at your sun. These are things that can navigate you and direct you into giving you a sense of direction. If Chiron is in Scorpio, this can be potentially sexual traumas or just traumas in general, psychological traumas, going down the rabbit hole, having some sort of like an addiction kind of an issue. Like, not Pisces is more addiction, but I mean like more like OCD kind of an addiction. Using psychology to support you, using astrology, tarot reading to support you can be something that's really beneficial. And so you can take a look at your 8th house, your Mars, your Pluto, stuff like that, and identify, okay, how can I work through this energy? Kind of identify what the challenges are in that area of your life and resolve that. Now, if you have Chiron in a Jupiter ruled sign like Sagittarius or Pisces, with Sagittarius, you might have some pain around higher education, maybe not feeling intelligent enough, or having pain around traveling, fear of airplanes, things like that. In which case, look at your 9th house. If we're talking about higher education is more Jupiter, not so much a Mercury, but you could also take a look at Mercury because Mercury also represents learning. Everything I mentioned so far can also be found in your 9th house as well. Airplanes, higher education. It can be about personal goal setting that you have some pain around, in which case you can also take a look at your 6th house of habits and look at how you can create more sustainable habits that is going to help you to achieve your personal success goals. And particularly if your Chiron is a Sagittarius, finding the higher purpose of something, finding the philosophical drive and the motivation. These are going to be things that can support you. If Chiron is in Pisces, you can take a look at what's going on in your 12th house, where Jupiter is, where Neptune is. You might have challenges related with spirituality. You might have experienced being victimized, feeling ungrounded. And so these are things that you can work on. What are some things that you can do in order to feel safe? You know, some people do well with living by the ocean, living by the beach, doing something that makes you feel physically safer, coming up with tools and resources and technology that allow you to be more present and be automated so that when you're in your own little world, things are taken care of. Maybe you have some sensitivity around spirituality. You have a lot of people that are criticizing you. And if you have that, the 9th house also represents spirituality, but it's ruled by Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. So seeing the higher purpose of things can be really beneficial. And most importantly, having Chiron and Pisces can be representative of addictions. So this can be, I would say, again, looking at your 12th house, but looking at Saturn, which is about creating blocks and making corrections, stuff like that. This is going to be something that can help you. Your 6th house of habits and stuff, understanding your emotional drive behind your addictions by looking at your moon, also looking at your 8th house and how what the best way is for you to release trauma and to reverse information, to have like a reverse experience. This can be something that can be really beneficial. If you have Chiron in a Saturn ruled sign such as Capricorn or Aquarius, having Chiron in Capricorn can be similar to Aries or Leo to a degree, where it's another sign that represents being a leader. So this can be some pain around being a leader, being a boss, maybe the relationships you have with your boss, your father figure, something of that nature. And so again, you want to look at your 10th house for stuff like that. You want to look at Saturn. What are the aspects that are influencing you there? And particularly when it's a Saturn ruled sign, you don't want to just take a look at Capricorn, but you also want to take a look at Aquarius, because they're right next to each other, and Saturn evolves differently when it's in Aquarius. So Capricorn is related to success. Maybe there's some pain and this drive, this compulsion that you have to be successful. And there's a sense of inadequacy here that you have to resolve. And if you find that it's becoming so problematic, where one of the potential negative manifestations is that you experience depression, focusing on Aquarius, even if you don't have Chiron in Aquarius, can be really beneficial, because Aquarius is an air sign. It's about giving back to the community. It's about society, everyday people, and it's getting support from the group and large groups in society and friends. And it's a very like cerebral planet. And so while Capricorn is very strategic, it can be really instinctive, it can be very isolating and work really hard, and it can kind of get into like a loop and stuff. So looking at things from an Aquarius perspective, you can become more independent minded, you can collaborate with other people, and this can help you to kind of work through that energy, because the second sign from Capricorn is Aquarius, and the second sign is about things that support you. So if you're finding that you're having challenges with Chiron and Capricorn, look to Aquarius to support you in the sign, and the house that it's in. Now, if you have Chiron in Aquarius, this could be challenges related to your community, your friends, technology, society. You know, this can be that like you have this pain around like judgments that you have around people rejecting you and stuff like that, in which case, like, start small. You know, Aquarius is still supposed to express itself. It's very cerebral. Try to use logic in a way that ultimately supports you. Find friends and find like a community online that does support you, and learn to build up your confidence. Move with a group that has the same values that you have, so that even when you get some criticism and some pushback, you'll still be supported by the group energy, and that can help to elevate you. That can help to develop the courage for you to grow into yourself and be the unique, independent individual that Aquariuses are. And if you have, well, I pretty much mentioned the generational planet signs. Scorpio for Pluto, when I covered that with Mars. I've covered Pisces, and I've also covered Aquarius already. So this is just an idea where you can just take a look at other areas, and basically the formula is to identify where Virgo is in your chart, what house it's in, because that tells a story of what you're meant to resolve, and what house and sign that your Chiron is in. And whatever that, and identify the age at which your Chiron got activated. Think about what happened during those times, and use that energy to determine and go through a process of elimination and be like, oh yeah, this is a challenge that I experienced. This is something for me to work through, resolve. what other sign and houses that represent that thing rules it, whether it's friends, money, relationships, your health. Look at the houses and signs that relate to that in your chart. And I mean, honestly, a really simple, easy way to do this is to get a rulership book and look at the houses, look at the signs, look at what they represent, look at like the key words, and especially the ones that keep showing up and there's a pattern and stuff, and be like, does that apply to me? And be like, oh my God, yes, it does. These are some of the challenges. Also look at the positive traits that are associated with the signs and the planets and the houses involved, and then incorporate that into these areas of your life and find a way to confront it. And if you're not comfortable doing that right off the bat, practice on your own. Write about it, talk about it to yourself, and practice saying, hey, you know what, these are some challenges that I'm having with my Chiron and I want to resolve it. This is the type of challenge I have. This is the way that I want to resolve it. How does that look like? What are some ways that I can incorporate that right now? And get yourself regulated and get comfortable with that and start practicing that in your day-to-day life. The other thing I would recommend is to take a look at your 8th house, because Chiron is about your unhealed wounds and traumas, and your 8th house is about traumas. Same thing with Scorpio, same thing with Pluto. Take a look at where these areas are, and the things related to this can also be layered in as a way to support you. I know that this video is a little different from a lot of the topics that are related to Chiron. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope it's given you some examples. And if you want to know a little bit more and you want me to use your chart as an example, let me know. Message me, send me your chart, and I could use it as an example in one of my future videos. So, and if you prefer that I keep your information private, I can delete some personal information, but it will be something that I will use so other people will be able to see it, so that I can use it as an example, so people have a better idea of what I mean and how you can actually use it with an actual chart as an example. All right, thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any other questions or any video topics that you want me to write about, please comment below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and have a beautiful day. Bye.